On Capitol Hill, the GOP takes another run at health care, but are the votes there? In Arkansas, lawmakers cut wait times for disability services, and the state starts taking applications for medical marijuana. And back in Washington, another batch of emails dogs the White House. Arkansas Week is next.
Local broadcast of Arkansas Week is made possible in part by the award-winning Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, Arkansas's largest major newspaper, bringing you local, national, and international news since 1819. By the Arkansas Times, keeping you informed by covering people, events, and politics in Arkansas. By FM 89, KUAR in Little Rock, with in-depth news reporting, analysis, and discussion each weekday.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Arkansas Week. I'm Lance Turner of Arkansas Business, sitting in for Steve Barnes. Well, it is quite possibly the political debate of our time, and that is health care, how people get it, how can they get it, how much it will cost, and that debate, of course, continues in Washington this week. That is where we begin tonight. Joining us on our panel from the pages of the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, independent journalist and columnist Hoyt Purvis. From Arkansas Public Media, where he is managing editor, Bobby Ampazan, and from the Arkansas Times, where he writes a weekly column, independent journalist Ernie Dumas. Gentlemen, thanks for coming in tonight. And once again, healthcare, healthcare, healthcare. That seems to be all our public debates seem to be about at state, local, and national levels. And of course, it's back again at a fever pitch in Washington, where the Senate is once again, Senate Republicans, trying to fulfill their promise, their long promise, to repeal and replace Obamacare. So what is the latest, Bobby, that we know about this new proposal that came out just yesterday?
You have to frame this as, if you love the horse race of politics, if you love the contradictions that partisanship sometimes brings out, this is right up your alley. The Better Care and Reconciliation Act. It was unveiled weeks ago by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell from Kentucky. Got a revision this week, and the details were released. It basically rolls back some of the things that were decried in the original bill that McConnell authored. But those things were the very things that for years Republicans had been wanting, of a repeal of the Affordable Care Act. Again, to bring us to the present, what we have is an act that throws a lot of money at opioid addiction. It also throws money at folks who struggle to come up with their health care premiums. Mm-hmm. These are very much big government aid for folks who need it. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, he exerted a lot of influence on this, and the compromise is providing insurance companies providing thinner plans. They've been called skimpier plans. Mm-hmm. These will no doubt be cheaper, but they'll cover less too. I mean, one of the things about the Affordable Care Act is that President Obama basically said even the bronze plan is going to be an adequate plan. Mm-hmm. This revision would provide some health coverage that would be really, really basic. So next week we'll see the Congressional Budget Office comes out with its analysis. Already, some senators like Maine moderate Republican Susan Collins has said she's not going to vote for this one. Either she wasn't going to vote for the one a few weeks back. And then the most interesting thing of all, I think, is that South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, as well as a Republican senator from Louisiana, Cassidy, have come up with their own plan. So before we know it, these will be like car models. There'll be a bunch of cars to choose from, and who knows, how this will shake out.
Well, the issue has been Mitch McConnell and the leadership are in a tough spot because they've got ultra-right conservatives on one issue who are not happy with what they've seen so far, and then you've got the moderates who are not happy with what they've seen so far, and they're trying to placate all of these extremes of the party. And Ernie, is there any indication that this bill is a good bill that starts to do that?
There's no indication so far. I think, in fact, I think the list I saw last night showed that out of the 100 members of the Senate, only 20 of them are willing to say, yeah, I'm going to vote for the bill. They're going to go down the line for Mitch McConnell, party loyalty all the way. So that's only 20 of them, and approximately another 20, well, they won't say. And our two senators, John Boozman and Tom Cotton, are in that category. They seem to have indicated to the governor. The governor's been lobbying him. He does not. I think he does not want this bill. He certainly didn't want the first two because of the great slashes in Medicaid funding. But they have not said. But my hunch is that when it comes down to it, if Mitch McConnell says we're Republicans, we're going to fall in line and do it, I think they will probably vote for it. But even at that, it looks like they're well short of the 50 votes that they have to get from senators. They can only lose 2 Republican senators, and then the vice president will cast a decisive vote if they can get 50.
And they first have to get the bill actually to the Senate floor.
They have to get it to the Senate floor.
That's and then again, even if that happens and it does pass, there's still a House bill out there, along with the CBO scoring. Right. I know Senator Boozman said he's going to be looking at the CBO scoring, but the one thing we know, I think, for sure, is that repeal and replace is not easy.
Right.
And the president back during the campaign had said it would be easy. Now he puts it alongside the Israeli-Palestinian.
It's the only thing more complicated than Mideast peace, apparently.
Apparently, yes.
I have to say that this bill is just as devastating to Arkansas as the House bill and also the Senate bill, the first version and maybe the second version of the Senate bill, because it continues to cut back Medicaid funding, and it kind of scuttles the Medicaid expansion that was in the Affordable Care Act, and that will be devastating to Arkansas and for Asa Hutchinson's future budgets. The Asa Hutchinson, I don't know how he won't be governor, I guess, in 22 when the last axe falls on Medicaid. But nevertheless, it will take billions of dollars out of the Arkansas budget in a few years. And the governor seems to be lobbying the 2 senators not to go along with that, and that's still in the bill.
Yeah, it's
the other thing that it does, though, perhaps the biggest change in this latest version is that it restores the taxes on the rich, which were really the real reason many Republicans wanted to repeal the Affordable Care Act, was to get rid of those taxes on very high income people, the Medicare tax and the tax on earned income. So those are going to stay in the bill now. And I suppose the theory is, well, they can give tax cuts to those people when they get around to the budget and reconciliation and the tax cut package.
I think some of those are in the House, would still be in the House bill at this point. So, but Ernie's right. I don't think people have really understood in Arkansas just how serious the implications are with the rollback on the Medicaid expansion. That really has very, very strong meaning for Arkansas, particularly, and the state budget. It just shoots everything all to heck.
Right. Well, what is the governor? How has he characterized his negotiations, or at least with talking with Boozman and Cotton, and how that's gone, and sort of what he likes to see, Bobby?
Yeah, I mean, he's been very ginger about not being too explicit about, I think, what we all sense, which is a rift between our congressional representation in the form of our 2 senators, Boozman and Cotton, and Hutchinson, who really since 2015, his first year as governor, has more and more gotten on board with the state's Medicaid expansion, which was a huge piece, the largest piece of Arkansas's implementation of Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act. So this is a governor that is confident enough in his own poll numbers, and he has a right to be, that he's been fairly clear publicly that he's communicated to the senators that he would like them to not repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act in this way.
Well, they have all promised to repeal and replace, or have said they would like to do that. in terms of national Republicans. But this bill is not a repeal and replacement. I mean, that's the other thing that I wonder about is how do constituents react to this bill, which is not what it was supposed to be initially, Ernie.
All those years after the passage of the act in 2010, and in every session of Congress, multiple times in every session, I've forgotten what the numbers are, maybe 50 or 60 times.
61, I think.
61 times during that, when Barack Obama was president, they passed legislation that I suppose just simply said the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act of 2010 is hereby repealed. That's all it said. You just killed it, and the law would go back to the way it was in 2009. But when it gets down to it, they can't do that. And so none of these bills, the House bill, any version of the House bill, including the one that finally passed the House, or none of the Senate legislation, none of them fully repeal that. They simply weaken the Affordable Care Act, and until this point, they all eliminated those taxes. But all of them have continued to strike at the Medicaid program, and ultimately it will make huge cuts in the. That's probably nearly a million people, Arkansans right now, benefit in some way from the Medicaid program, and virtually every family in Arkansas, at some point or other, has family members that benefit from the Medicaid program, whether it's nursing homes, whether it's Our Kids First Program for children, or the children's colonies for the disabled kids. All of those, multiple programs, nearly every family in Arkansas benefits. And this would affect all of those potentially.
Right. Well, moving on to health care, again to another healthcare subject in Arkansas. Again, healthcare is so huge. Healthcare of a specific kind. The governor, speaking to the Rotary Club earlier this week, noted a key milestone in trying to reduce the wait list for disability services. And this is something that began in the legislature and now is starting to come to some fruition, Bobby. About
a year ago, the governor announced that he wanted to shift money from the master tobacco settlement. This was the case in around 1999-2000. Where the big tobacco companies just signed this huge class action award to, I think, 46 states. And Arkansas gets, $50-60 million a year. The governor, about this time last year, announced that he wanted to shift some of those monies away from where they're typically channeled toward removing the roughly 3,000 people that are on this disabilities wait list for community services. Some of these services are outside the house, but when we say community services, we mean mostly people coming to a home with someone who is physically disabled and rendering services there instead of a large hospital type setting or a campus. Well, this week he announced that roughly $8.5 million has been shifted from, again, the tobacco settlement, and it's removed roughly 500 folks, again, disabled folks, from the wait list. These people are presumably getting services. So that was the big announcement. It's a huge win for the governor based on legislation that was signed earlier this year. It's been something that for roughly a year he's had on his agenda. This is one of those small things that sort of shows the breadth of how involved the state is in healthcare in a lot of different corners. And although they've reduced that waiting list by 500, there's still roughly 2,500 people on it, and the governor is sort of committed. He's going to eliminate that altogether and get all of these people to provide services. But here's the thing: we were talking about the Medicaid program. All that money is matched by through Medicaid. So most of that money for all disability services is Medicaid money from the federal government. And again, all of these bills potentially could affect that down the line. So I would suspect that the governor might have some concern about the Senate bill this week for that purpose as well. Bobby? Right, I was just going to say Ernie brings up a good point. The $8.5 million that was shifted away was matched above that amount by the federal government. So we're talking about, I think, roughly $30 million. Probably roughly 3 to 1. Yeah, $30 million commitment to doing that, with the lion's share of that coming from the federal government. Sure. Looking to another area of state action, this in the courts.
this is, of course, healthcare and its intersections with state government. A federal judge yesterday heard arguments challenging 4 new state laws, 3 that are set to take effect at the end of this month, that tighten restrictions on abortion in Arkansas. This is a Little Rock doctor, along with the ACLU and the Center for Reproductive Rights, challenging those laws and seeking an injunction to stop them. Bobby, where are we at with that?
So this took place in Federal Judge Christine Baker's courtroom. Incidentally, Baker heard a big set of arguments during April's executions, but at issue is Act 45. This is Representative Andy Mayberry's prohibition against a particular kind of surgical abortion called dilation and extraction. The state argues that this is just on its face an inhumane procedure. The ACLU, as well as the Center for Reproductive Rights, have argued that the implementation of this act fundamentally restricts a woman's access to abortion in a way that the federal courts, including the U.S. Supreme Court, has routinely upheld, that women are allowed this access. So those are the oral arguments, and we'll see where Baker lands on this issue. I could tell you that this very issue has come up in Oklahoma and Kansas, also conservative states, presumably some conservative judges there. They have routinely overturned state laws that prohibit this particular surgical abortion.
A Republican legislature that has been aggressive about passing some laws that people say, well, this could be unconstitutional.
Well, every legislative session in recent years, every regular legislative session, there's been a flurry of these kinds of bills. There's always a new generation of anti-abortion bills that make their way to state legislatures around the country. And the Arkansas legislature picks up and routinely passes them. And they're challenged in the courts, and nearly universally they're struck down in the courts as violating the Roe v. Wade and its subsequent decisions by the Supreme Court on abortion, as restricting the privacy rights of women. So, and you would have to predict that that's what's going to happen, at least in perhaps in all 4 of these bills that are under challenge now. And I think maybe is there still a 5th bill?
There's a 5th one that I think is in a separate argument for that.
In a separate district court.
Well, Ernie's right. I mean, it's hard to believe that there is some area in which restrictions have not been passed by the legislature. At the same time, there are serious questions about constitutionality in nearly every case.
We had another lawsuit in court, this one involving execution drugs, Hoyt. This is sort of a leftover, a lingering from executions of earlier this year.
Lingering controversy. There was a lot of controversy, as most will remember, several aspects of controversy about the executions that took place in April and received a lot of attention. One aspect of the controversy had to do with the so-called drug protocol, or the 3-drug protocol that was used. And the issue that's now in the courts, basically the drug supply company is maintaining that Arkansas received the drugs under false pretenses. And that remains to be decided or debated in the court. And at the same time, we have the situation where we've now exhausted, I think, the supply that we had of the drug protocol. And with other executions on the horizon, it's not clear exactly what will happen in terms of the availability of the drugs for the lethal injections.
It certainly won't get any easier to procure those drugs, I wouldn't think, Bobby.
No, I think it raises the specter maybe of a new protocol being introduced. Other states have a one-drug protocol, use of some kind of a barbiturate, and that may be the future that the state is facing.
Let's talk a little bit about another new law, a new industry that's taking shape here in Arkansas. That's marijuana, medical marijuana. July 1st was a red letter day in that timeline, and that is we are now, as a state, taking applications for businesses that want to grow, cultivate, or dispense medical marijuana. So that process has now begun. Don't know that there's a lot of action taking place really beyond that, but we will see, I think, in the coming months, some things starting to take shape, Bobby, and how that industry grows.
Yeah, the basics of this is that the state, the Medical Marijuana Commission, a 5-member body, has committed to issuing 5 licenses to grow marijuana, to cultivate marijuana. These will be kind of like industrial farms, although they will not be thousands of acres, as well as 32 licenses to dispense or retail marijuana. But these licenses will be issued in 8 geographical areas around the state. So it will not be the case that, Pulaski County, where Little Rock is, and Benton and Washington County in the Northwest will have all of the stores and farms for this business. So the Department of Finance and Administration are accepting licenses. These applications. These applications are intense. Not to mention, you need to put up a bond that's roughly a 6-figure bond, saying, if my business somehow falls on hard times, I can weather it. And we'll see what kind of. I imagine you're going to get a lot of applications that have backing from established businessmen or even businesses.
Well, we've already seen in some areas of the state where these businesses who maybe have not yet officially submitted their application are already out in the community talking about their plans, and there seems to be some apprehension in some city governments as to how they will go about zoning and their own sort of licensing processes, and that seems to be taking shape already in some places.
Yeah, Hot Springs, as well as another community that escapes my mind right now, their city council voted to not allow dispensaries or grow facilities within their municipal boundaries.
Although I think the constitutional amendment prohibits cities from doing that.
Yeah, that would be a legal fight.
Yeah.
Right. And I think David Couch, who's the architect of that plan, has said that. So much more to watch then on that.
Well,
front
they've also got you got to get a permit to grow marijuana. You also have to get a permit to dispense it. And then if you're a patient and a customer, you have to get a state authorization to qualify you to get this thing. And so I think only 45 people have applied so far. So there are problems there on all fronts. But
And we should mention that process, the process of getting a medical marijuana registration card is concurrent. It's ongoing as we speak.
Right. Let's go back to Washington for sort of the scandal of the week, and it's still developing this morning, and that is the meeting that took place with Donald Trump Jr. and members of the Trump campaign with people purported to have Russian connections. And that again is another drip in a long drip of facts that have come out in this alleged Russian collusion storyline, Bobby.
Yeah, so we learned this morning as we're taping this show that the AP has gotten the second name of the Russian national who met with Donald Trump Jr. I should say that the second person has dual citizenship with our own country, which maybe illustrates how murky these waters are.
Right.
Neither Russian name can I pronounce.
Right.
But yeah, we're going to see, many people, maybe on both sides, probably predominantly on the left, have thrown out the word treason. Most legal experts say that the bar for proving treason is really, really high.
Right.
This is clearly not treason.
Right.
But we'll see. It's just another connection between the current administration and the country of Russia.
And it's just hard to get things done when you've got stuff like this hanging over you, right? In terms of congressional Republicans who want to do things like health care, all aside as to what actually happened, but when you're trying to govern, it's very difficult when you've got another distraction as big as this sitting out there.
And this has been going on now for a while, a couple of years actually. This Russian thing popped up well before Donald Trump, early on after he announced for president, and it actually been going on years and years before that, way back to the 80s, his love affair with Russia. And then it's just gotten all of his various stories, and it just seems to be endlessly, and it seems to be growing, and he can't put it behind him, although he could have, but he's just unable mentally, I think, to put this thing behind him, and it just keeps growing worse and worse for him, and so it hangs over Congress. They can't get anything done, so it's just eating them up.
There you go. 2-minute warning. Hoyt. So in Little Rock, the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, apparently discussing having a football team and a marching band.
Not just a football team, but a Division I football team.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, what we learned this week is, well, first of all, something we already know, and that is we love our football in Arkansas,
Absolutely.
no doubt about that. But UALR, the City of Little Rock, and the Department of Parks and Tourism are going to undertake the study or arrange for a study about the possibility, and I want to use the precise terms that were used by the UALR officials, bringing back a football program to Little Rock. Well, I would argue that there has not been a football program in Little Rock. There has been a team that has played in Little Rock for many years. Nearly every game I personally witnessed, dating back to 1948 with the first game. But it raises a lot of questions about the viability, and that's what they're going to study. And certainly there's a very good chance that they will decide to move ahead. But I think both in terms of finance and support and all kinds of other issues. But keep in mind, we've got ASU that is a Division I football team struggling to be in the big time. We've got UCA and UAPB that are certainly on the edges of major college football. We've got the 6 Great American Conference schools, many of the old AIC schools, and then we've got even Hendrix and Lyon College now with their football teams. Right. So the question is, I mean, the Razorbacks, of course, have enjoyed this statewide support. Would a UALR team, playing its games in War Memorial Stadium, would it be able to attract the same kind of state support? I think there's a big question mark there.
Hoyt, your Razorbacks, I know, are champing at the bit to get to play the Trojans here at Little Rock. It would replace the Sisters of Mercy or one of those other
Florida
A&M.
We need to start that campaign. Let's get them playing. All right, that's going to be it. We appreciate you for tuning in. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Local broadcast of Arkansas Week is made possible in part by the award-winning Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, Arkansas's largest major newspaper, bringing you local, national, and international news since 1819. By the Arkansas Times, keeping you informed by covering people, events, and politics in Arkansas. By FM 89, KUAR in Little Rock, with in-depth news reporting, analysis, and discussion each weekday.